And then we will post this to our social media, so the UCLA Cycling Facebook and as well as the Grange Facebook groups. So again, thank you guys all for joining. Without further ado, I'm going to start introducing our panelists. So my name's Ethan. I'm from UCLA Cycling. I've been riding for 10 years now. Started up in Team Swift in Northern California, and then came down to college for UCLA and have been riding with the team since my freshman year. And that's where I met all of these lovely people were in Los Angeles. So I'll hand off the mic to Alan. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, name, how long you've been riding, that sort of thing.
Hey guys, I'm Alan. I'm the vice president of the UCLA cycling team, and I've been riding for around 4 or 5 years now. Wait, what else did you say to introduce?
Yeah, that's great. And maybe a fun fact about yourself. Let's go with that.
I started cycling because I watched an anime about cycling.
Sweet. All right, Esther.
Okay, hi guys. I'm Esther. I started cycling with my grandparents, or it was more just riding bikes around Belgium. And at that time I thought it was really boring because it was all flat and we would go kind of slow. And then my brother had a road bike, and I started riding that, and I thought it was really fun. And then eventually I got my own road bike, and I've had it for a year now, and I've been riding in LA for a year. And a fun fact is that my brother is in the group here as well, joining us.
Oh, love this. Family affair. Cool. And yeah, Esther is also part of the UCLA cycling team. And then the last UCLA cyclist panel is going to be Julia. Why don't you go ahead, tell us a tiny bit about yourself, how long you've been riding, and a fun fact.
Hello. I'm Julia. I am also on the UCLA cycling team, and this is my 3rd year on the team. I started cycling because my dad was really the one who got me into it. So throughout high school, I would go on rides with him, and then I joined the team my freshman year. A fun fact, I don't know. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo, so I guess that's a fun fact. Yeah, so I'm excited.
So cool. What?
Oh, thanks. Not even related to cycling, but fun fact. So yeah, I'm excited to meet everyone and talk today.
Sweet. Thank you. And then we are going to actually, let's have Sam Boardman. He's a UCLA alumnus talk or introduce himself.
Hi everybody, my name is Sam. I graduated from UCLA in 2018, and I started cycling when I came to UCLA in 2014. Prior to that, I had just been kind of scooting around my hometown of Washington, D.C. on a fixie bike, and even before that, I was running and just tooling around in my neighborhood on a BMX bike. So kind of a long-winded trajectory to get to cycling, but once I joined the UCLA cycling team, pretty much became obsessed and made it my 3rd major, along with the 2 other academic degrees. And upon graduation, I then was able to travel and race full time, and then got my first pro contract with Wildlife Generation Pro Cycling Team in 2019. And I've been racing with them for the past 2 seasons, and I'll continue racing professionally in 2021. But fun fact about me, I speak Spanish, and I am a master's student in elementary education.
Super fun facts. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to our Lagrange panelists. We have 3 of them. Let's start with Marco.
How you doing? I'm Marco Fantone. I'm going to try to not scare all of you with years I'm about to throw out here. So I started cycling in the late 1980s, joined Lagrange in 1997, was president of Lagrange for 3 years from 09 to 12, and here we are in 2020. Somehow I've survived. Fun fact, I've won 1 race in my entire racing career back in 2006.
Hey, it's all about riding bikes and having fun. Doesn't matter how many races you win.
It's all about the camaraderie.
Exactly. Cool. So next is going to be Tina Grant. Go for it. Take it away.
Hey guys, I'm Tina. I'm the women's Lagrange team race captain. Just joined the Lagrange board as well, which is very exciting. I've been riding bikes for about 5 years and then racing for 3. Fun fact about me, since we're not racing and I have some extra time, I've been roller skating a lot and learning how to skate in a half pipe. So that's really weird and fun.
That's awesome. I need to do that too. Let's see. And lastly, last but not least, is Whit, Garnett. You can tell them your name. Maybe that can your real name. That can maybe be your fun fact. But go take it away.
Good evening, everybody. So as you all know, I am Whit. Parents raised me at Garnett Whitmire III, and that's where the 3 comes from. You all see that all the time. But I started riding in 2009, 2010. Had a 5-year break due to military. Started back riding in 2017. So you could pretty much say I've been riding for consistently for 3 years, competitively for 2 years, since we really didn't do anything in 2020. I got into cycling because I was looking for a hobby. And a fun fact is that your boy has never ridden a carbon fiber bike for more than 5 minutes. That's me. Until this new build is done.
That's unreal, man. How dare you? Well, thank you guys. Thank you to all our panelists for those introductions. So we're gonna basically start it off with a couple questions, and if you like, we're gonna open it up to the floor basically from the get-go. I have some polls as well. Let's go ahead and launch that right now. I'm gonna ask. There's just 3 questions. It's all anonymous. We're just trying to get a little bit of data for our first seminar and see what kind of experience levels of riders we're getting. So I'm just gonna launch the first question and feel free to respond. We'll give it like a minute or so. Okay. Oh my God, there's 3 questions. Yeah. So go for it. Hey, John, how's it going?
What's up, Ethan? Thanks for hosting, man.
Of course. Good to see you. Are you viewing the poll? Are you able to see that? Or okay, so new rider or new people entering.
I got.
Yes, cannot see it. What's that?
I got it. I'm good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll just give it another minute and a half for everyone to fill it out, and then yeah, kind of see what skills are most useful to you and what you guys want to know the most about. Yes, comfortability is a word, Tom.
Whatever happened to just saying comfort? Comfort. It's like the word normalcy just suddenly came into vogue this year. And it was just like, whatever happened to normality? That was a perfectly good word. Now everyone's just all about normalcy. Didn't even know that one existed. And I studied English.
Yeah, exactly. English changes, man. Languages change.
I don't know about that one.
And bougie, that was a pretty new one, right? I mean, it's definitely a
bougie. I mean, wasn't
bourgeois. What?
It was like the 2011 or 2012 dictionary.com word of the year or something was selfie. So clearly the times they are changing.
Awesome. All right, guys, 5 more seconds for the poll, and we will, yeah, let's stop that. Cool. Lovely. So I am not gonna share results at the moment, but it's just really for like I said, taking data. So looks like a bunch of people are in the 1 to 3 year range. A couple of people who have been riding for less than 6 months and just getting started because of, did it cut off because of quarantine. And then a few people riding for 3 years. So excited to share our knowledge with you guys. So with that, let's start. What kind of questions do you guys have for our star-studded panelist? And if you want to introduce yourself as well, feel free to speak up and say your name and where you're from.
I have a question. I'm Brent. I'm from, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
cool. I'm Brent. I guess I was introduced earlier, but I'm Esther's brother. I actually didn't come equipped with questions, but I saw that this poll, I saw the clipping in and out thing. And I've recently been thinking about trying to work on clipping in and out with the foot that I never do it with. And I was wondering if anyone thinks that's like a good idea. Anyone with some experience, maybe racing, like if I clip out with my left, but like, let's say I'm racing, my right foot gets clipped out. I don't want that to be awkward. Does anyone have experience with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I got experience. I will tell you this right now, no matter what experience you are at, there will be a point at which you will not be able to unclip when you come to a stop or a stoplight or a stop sign, and you'll tip over. And sometimes it's just muscle memory, but I'm one of those people where, I mean, I think Ethan probably saw it at one point or another. I am super finicky with my fit. I will adjust my cleats like 3 times, 4 times on a ride, just to make sure everything is like perfectly symmetrical. And part of weight regimens that I do is, in part, I think motivated by neuroses that I can't get rid of, but it's like I need to make sure everything I do is symmetrical, because I feel like efficiency on the bike is driven in part because of like equal muscle recruitment, or at least better muscle recruitment. And so, you know, from a muscular standpoint, practicing with both feet is just good to do. I also just think, you know, for safety's sake, if you feel like your right ankle is like slightly weaker than your left ankle and you're going to have a little trouble unclipping in a like sketchy situation, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Something to change the pace.
Cool, thanks.
Any panelists have anything to build on that front?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it depends on what type of riding you do, but especially if you do any riding in the dirt, or even if you take your road bike onto some dirt, you're going to come into a situation where, you know, you're not in a race, but gosh, you've got to get out with that other leg. And I completely agree with Sam. Just, you know, get used to it, you know, go out for a week and make that like your rest week and just practice unclipping with that leg where you're not in a stressed out situation. And it'll really help when you want it to.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. I will echo both of those, both Tina and Sam's comments as well. I think it's super advantageous to practice clipping out with my left leg, but getting used to being in other scenarios that you aren't necessarily expecting. So even if you're on a group ride and somebody clips over, and like this happened to me, they've fallen over onto me, and I'm like, oh man, I usually clip out with my right foot, but I'm leaning to the left. What do I do? Just that kind of focusing on that reaction time and getting comfortable with that. It's definitely an important skill to have. So, and like Sam said, balancing both sides of your body in cycling is crucial. I struggle with that because I had a stages power meter. So my left lung was so strong compared to my right, because I always wanted to have a power imbalance, but I've been working on balancing my right leg a little more now. But thanks for the question.
I have a question. Yeah, my name is Brian. I'm a friend of Marco's. I used to be a rider many, many moons ago. And then in high school, I became a runner. And so I started cycling just to get outside and be with my friends about 4 months ago. I still run and swim. I haven't been cycling as much lately, but one of the things that's kind of perplexed me is the etiquette of road bikers versus mountain bikers. So I'll run on the trails, and especially like coming down, but also going up, is that the mountain bikers don't really tell you that they're behind you. And it kind of, I mean, or cyclists and runners don't really get along much, especially in Santa Monica area. And it seems exacerbated on the trails. So how, as a runner, and then if I'm a cyclist on the dirt, how can we coexist with some, politeness or etiquette? Because, sometimes I almost get run over by mountain bikers, and because I don't know that they're behind me, and we kind of have to share the dirt. So what would be a good way to kind of handle that?
Yeah, that's a really excellent question. Any of our panelists have something to say? Sam?
I will say, I think a big thing is, first off, we can't really control anyone else. And that's kind of the hard part with this, because especially you're sharing the trail with mountain bikers, unlike probably some of us roadies. We have different bike paths where most of the space is taken up by tourists, by walkers, by joggers, slower riders, etc. So we'll use the shoulder of the road. Well, you don't have that situation. So all I would say is probably, if you're running and they're coming up on you, and I've seen it myself, I've seen runners that wear like a really illuminated vest. I would say just illuminate yourself even more. And maybe, and again, I'm not a mountain biker. And again, I don't know what the situation was, but what I will say is if you could illuminate yourself a little bit more, maybe those mountain bikers, those cyclists, the earlier they see you, the more inclined they may be able to let you know that they're coming, especially since you're running and you're looking ahead, you're not watching your six. So if they can see you earlier, they may be able to let you know, as well as any other cyclist or mountain biker that's in the group, to let the other mountain bikers know, hey, we have a runner up, runner right, runner left, whatever the case may be. I hope that helps, but I'm not.
But it's clearly during the day, so visibility is an issue. So it's coming around a corner, and the cyclist will take the inside line, and they're just not. It's just, unfortunately, in Santa Monica, Brentwood, cyclists and runners, it's just kind of oil and vinegar, and and then you have cars thrown in there, so it's just kind of a problem that you can't see behind you, and then a cyclist comes up, or I've had cyclists play chicken with me on the trails where they're coming right at me from the opposite direction, and they like, one guy just wanted to play chicken, and we were gonna figure out who was gonna flinch first. So so things like that just kind of exacerbate the feud kind of between runners and cyclists. So if there's anything I can do, I try to look behind me, but
Brian, let me just ask you a quick question. Do you ever wear like headphones when you're running, like visible headphones or anything like that?
I usually kind of run without headphones.
Okay, I mean, that's good, because I know that a lot of cyclists or mountain bikers, typically, if they see a runner who's wearing headphones, sometimes, and this is a judgment call I make, they don't say anything when they're passing them, because it's actually more startling to the runner, who can't really hear that well if they do have headphones in, and if you're like screaming at them, they're only going to hear you at last minute, and that's actually going to startle them and cause them to move. Like, as a person who's like dabbled in mountain biking, I think Ethan has, some of the most mountain biking experience, but I know that from my own experience, if I'm going down a trail, I think proper etiquette where I was mountain biking is just like, pedestrians adhere to cyclists going up or down. And that's not necessarily just because like, oh, cyclists rule the territory, but I think it's just the cyclists, and the onus on the cyclist is to be cautious on the descent, but on the uphill, it's harder for a cyclist to maneuver around a turn or maneuver up a hill on the bike, and they don't want to lose momentum, which I think is where you find instances where the guys are just like, you know, huffing and puffing and trying to go around you on the inside line. Maybe it's not out of malice necessarily, or just like trying to get you out of the way, but it's just because they want to keep their momentum going up the hill, because it's harder to start on a downhill. I find that when I was trail running, earlier this season, granted I was doing that in Montana, but I think it would apply to a lot of places in, you know, just trails where there are mountains, because you have other animals. But I was wearing bells or some kind of noise making device that alerted not only the creatures in the area to my presence, but also other pedestrians, other mountain bikers, so that, you know, if they have any kind of idea that there is someone else coming up around the corner or coming through the trail, then I think people are more inclined to, you know, slow down. And I think, I don't know what the guy who was playing chicken with you was doing, like if he clearly was just trying to like be a jerk about it. And if that's the case, that sucks. And sometimes you just can't help people. But other times you would find people who aren't as confident, and their only hope is just to kind of keep going their course and hope that the pedestrian, who they assume has more control over their range of motion, will get out of the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I do want to add to that, Sam. Thank you for those comments. And Brian, thanks for the question as well, because that's really kind of a hot topic right now. And I live on Mount Tamalpais in North Bay, and there's always been this feud since I can remember, is between mountain bikers and hikers. That's just everyone kind of hates each other if they're in those two different worlds. And it's unfortunate, like, because you want to see mutual respect, and you guys are both out enjoying the outdoors in your own, the way that makes you happy, right? So I've been a runner and a mountain biker and a road cyclist, so I definitely know all of those perspectives. And as a mountain biker, what I was always taught was be respectful and be mindful that other people are using the trail. So from the biker perspective, it would be making your presence known to people. So I always wore a bell so that people could hear me from around the corner. And like Sam was saying, sometimes yelling can be startling because you don't hear them to the last minute, but a higher pitched noise will actually alert somebody from a farther distance away. Some sound physics that we can go into later, and I'll pull out some equations. I'm just kidding. I won't do that. But I will say that there is a kind of a two-way street of respect in that regard, and it's the cyclist's responsibility to make the presence known and to be aware of their surroundings. And then it's also the runners. It's definitely like when I'm running on the trails here, it's 100% my responsibility to be aware of what's coming around me. I don't like you. I don't wear headphones, so I can, if I hear the tires on the road or on the trail coming down from the opposite direction, I can get out of the way. And I also take the outside line. So as a runner and as a pedestrian on the road, for instance, you want to see a car on the road or a mountain biker on the trails, you want to make sure that you're in the path of most visibility. So taking the outside line around a trail usually gives the best distance for somebody to see you. So that would be my advice, is just, you don't necessarily have to stay on the right side the entire time, especially on the trails. You go to the outside line where you can see the farthest, and somebody coming the other way or coming around a corner could see you as well. If that makes sense. It clarifies it. Okay.
I also just want to add that, well, first, I'm sorry that you're having that experience. I know that is a problem for a lot of people. I think that we should all be encouraging our communities to say hello and to, let people know that they're there. And just, even if you're passing another cyclist or roller skater or whoever, it doesn't matter, just, hey, coming up on your left. And I know I have a really loud, obnoxious bell on all of my bikes, not necessarily like a cowbell, but one that I can actually ring. And so that if I know I'm coming up on you, Brian, then I can go ding, 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 hey, I'm on your left. And, just that stuff helps. Like Whit said, like, there's no perfect answer here, but, we should all respect each other. And I'm sorry you're dealing with that.
It was just a one-time thing, and like I said, I started writing it back again about 4 months ago, and you know, when I'm on a bike with other cyclists, you know, it's really not a problem, but it's just when you're not on two wheels, the dynamics seem to change. So, well, there's more traffic out now than there was 4 months ago, too.
Absolutely. That is definitely part of, I mean, that's part of the reason that we're having this discussion too, is like there's such a high density of people and pedestrians and cyclists. So just trying to foster that sort of mutual beneficial relationship, I guess, like a symbiosis, and in the way that, yeah, runners and hikers can have an enjoyable time and not worry about some asshole basically coming around and risking their lives, and vice versa. So yeah, I think being just cognizant and understanding of everybody, and for cyclists, making sure that they are known to people, and like Tina said, being friendly, like, hey, I'm on your left, hope you have a great day, you know. So that's what I try to do as a mountain biker is, how are you doing? Have a great day. Take care. Yeah.
I guess the other question I have is, you know, with cars, what could I do to help educate drivers or to be seen better, like doing hand signals, or, you know, sometimes in the past when I'm driving my car and I see a cyclist, you know, and I've talked to Marco about this, is, you know, maybe tapping the horn real quick and kind of a wave that, hey, I'm behind you, or maybe just a hand signal. But sometimes I've seen road cyclists with earphones in their ear as well, which makes it more difficult to communicate with them if I'm in my car. So what could I do as a driver or as a cyclist, either way, to be more visible to either one and to kind of communicate with the cyclists around me?
I think the best experiences I have had is just trying to make sure that you are making as good eye contact, and this is from the cyclist perspective, as possible. Even though a lot of us wear, you know, the sunglasses are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and soon they'll just be taking up our whole faces, and we'll be looking like stormtroopers. Not that we aren't already, but just making sure that you're looking and trying to make that kind of eye contact with the driver really helps if your intention is to like try and move across the road. I know, for example, if you are on the rightmost side of the road and there is a bike lane and then 2 lanes and then a turn lane, and you want to be in that turn lane, obviously you're going to want to look behind you and big old signal, like throw your hand in the air. There's nothing wrong with that. And just make sure that like you have the driver acknowledge your presence prior to you making your move, because I know that, you know, so many collisions are just, I never want to like put blame on anyone who's just like trying to make a turn, but sometimes if you're just swerving out to like kind of claim your space, thinking, okay, I signaled, it's my right. Well, a car doesn't really care, because a car is gonna just like run you over anyway. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned is making eye contact, or trying to at least, and big signaling. I also found, and maybe this is just where I live in San Diego, that having a light, even during the day, like some kind of rear light or flashing light, actually helps drivers become more aware of you. And I think what it also shows is that you want them to see you, and they like can kind of subliminally understand that you're trying to make yourself seen as much as possible. The other like anecdotal thing is I've found that the people who will buzz you, who will, you know, run you off the road, or who will just yell at you, if I'm wearing like a USA National kit, they'll treat me better. I don't know why, but that's like, you know, when I go ride out in the country, I wear a USA kit because for some reason they just treat me better. So I don't know what that is about, but I mean, there are a lot of anecdotes that points to that from me personally, but yeah. And then Ethan made a good point in the chat right here. Don't assume that everyone knows what you're going to do. As a driver, that's my biggest thing with cyclists, is the lack of eye contact, or at least the lack of signaling, lack of like indicating your intention. That's what I think is the most dangerous and what sketches me out. and I don't know what anyone else thinks, but I think the horn honking, there's a very fine line, and I've found that I can tell that it is a friendly honk if it's like a beep beep. That I don't know what it is about that. It's like beep beep, 2 quick honks. That's like the default friendly honking. But if it's like just, I don't know, it could just be beep, that's just one, and that like annoys me more than just like 2 honks. No idea why. I don't know if anyone else has that feeling, but I do actually. Yeah, Tina, you understand what I'm talking about. I do actually appreciate like the 2 honks, because I think, again, that is the driver's way of signaling to the cyclist that they are, wanting to let them know that they're passing, and they're trying to do that in, whatever means of communication that they have. Because, if a driver yells at a cyclist, drivers never seem to understand this when they do yell vitriol at us, that we can't actually hear more than like 1 syllable as they blow by us. They're not actually getting the message across. So if you're trying to yell at us that you're turning, it's not going to do any good. But the little 2 quick honks, I actually find that really helpful. And it shows that the driver cares about letting me know that they're passing, and that I can, give them due respect and get out of the way, move, or signal accordingly.
I like to add a little bit. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go.
I like to add to that. So one, not originally being from California, and this is my plug for bad drivers of the year, is Californians, because what we have all been blessed with are left and right signaling indicators. And what I've learned being here is that not a lot of us, I'm saying us, we don't really use the left and right indicators. And so what I mean by that is, with an aspect of being the cyclist, is as Sam said, as Ethan said, be predictable, meaning signal early, signal often. If you're the cyclist, put that hand out there that I'm making a left-hand turn, I'm jumping into that lane. If you're coming up to an intersection and you got cars that are trailing behind you, not knowing if you're going to go straight through the intersection, if you're going to make a right-hand turn because they're making a right-hand turn, signal early and signal often. As a YouTuber as well, I've done a review on the Garmin Varia RTL 510, which it is actually a rear light, and it's a radar, which works with the Wahoo head unit as well as the Garmin, any smart Garmin head unit, like the 530, the 1030, the 830 of that nature. And what it does is it actually detects vehicles that are behind you. And it gives you a chirp, it gives you a beep that'll let you know that cars are behind you. And I think it's like 150 meters of detection. So you will already be in the know that vehicles are behind you. Me personally, don't honk, because I don't know what that means. Am I doing something wrong? Am I in that's just my personal thing. I would prefer a driver to not rev the engine, just drive past me. I mean, you got your lane, I got my lane. If I'm in the lane, because there is no bike lane, just give me a couple of feet, 3 feet preferably, and just pass me as the driver. But again, I think on both aspects, signal early, signal often helps both of us. But I think as the rider, also be visible. We don't always wear the brightest of colors when it comes to kits, because again, who wants to be in pink every single day, or floral every single day, or orange every single day? So again, if that's your thing, then I would encourage you to maybe go with some more neon jerseys. A neon, Rudy has a neon helmet, a floral helmet. Different companies have different floral colors where you can just be a little bit more visible. But I think those are some things that can also help on both aspects of being the driver as well as being the cyclist.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and add, I know a lot of the panelists have said some great things, and I definitely agree with all of that. So in terms of the drivers and the honking, I would agree with Whit that if a driver ever honks at me, it's usually just going to scare me, like it'll startle me, and then I will have no idea. Yeah, I don't know if they're just trying to tell me that they're right behind me, or if they're trying to tell me that like I'm in their way, or that they're trying to turn or anything. So for the drivers, I would not recommend honking at cyclists, but that's just my opinion. And so I am from Dallas originally, and it's a completely different world, cycling in Dallas versus cycling in Los Angeles, for better and for worse. So yeah, one of the things that I really had to adapt to whenever I came to LA was just the nature of the drivers here, because it's very different and it's a lot more hostile, even if that's not necessarily what the drivers are trying to convey.
It's just a lot faster pace. So yeah, I think as everyone was saying before, it's really important to have lights. I have a backlight and a front light that I use during the day. It's important to be as noticeable as possible. And another thing that I've noticed is that, you know, if drivers get angry at you for whatever reason, even if it's completely unjustified, unwarranted, you don't want to match that intensity. Like I smile and wave. I just let them go by. I let them keep driving, move on with their day, because I don't want to escalate the situation. And that's really what I found to be the best way to handle it. So yeah.
Well, I think it depends also on how many cyclists, like if it's a big group, then I think the car has to defer to the group of cyclists. If it's one or two, you know, sometimes I've been in an intersection and they've stopped their bicycle right in front of the car instead of being onto the side. So if I do a quick tap or that gentleman said, you know, 2 quick taps on my horn just to let them know I'm behind them, they get angry at me as a driver, but I'm just doing it because they can't see me, so I can't signal to them. And they've parked their bike right in the, you know, the crosswalk in front of me as a car and not to the side. So I'm kind of left with, hey, I'm behind you. You need to kind of move over. But you know, there's always drivers that think they own the road, and there are cyclists that think they own the road. So it becomes kind of a, you know.
Hey, Brian, elaborate on the crosswalk you're in. You're a driver. Where exactly are you?
Oh, I'm right in, you know, behind the white lines, and there'll be cyclists, you know, maybe
You're waiting for a light to change, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're in front of the car, you know, in the crosswalk or beyond it.
All right. Until the light turns green, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Chill.
No, I don't.
Well, it doesn't sound like it.
Oh, well, you know, a
I
car.
can give Brian shit because I've known Brian for like 40 years. So, you know,
But the
in
car
case the rest
moves.
of you don't know.
The car moves faster than a cyclist, so.
All right. Well, when the light turns green, though, cyclists typically will move over to the right. You know, regardless of where they are when the light's red, it doesn't matter. Just give them a second. If they stay out there, yeah, then give them a quick tap. But they're likely going to move over. They're not going to stay out there.
Yeah, and I think that's I do agree with Marco. And like, given I do that all the time. Like I pull up next to cars and then I go in front of them. That's a visibility thing too for me. Yeah. It's safer for a cyclist to, given we're a smaller object, generally can accelerate a little faster and then immediately move to the right. But it's so that cars behind us can really see like, oh, you are here. Okay, I'm going to give you enough space. So it's our way of signaling to cars that we're here. So and yeah, I mean, that's probably why cyclists get mad at you, is they think you're just being some possessive person of the road. And don't take it the wrong way. Like, I think both sides kind of just need to chill out on that front. But from the cyclist point of view, yeah, it is safer for us to come by the cars on the right side and then move over in front of you so that you can see us. And then the general rule of thumb is just pull, like as soon as the light turns green, start accelerating and then move to the right immediately so that the cars can pass.
Okay.
There was a scary situation. It was right before the pandemic ended. We were doing one of the last Nichols rides that we could do, and we're stopped at a light on Sunset. A woman was on her phone. We waved to her. She waved back, and then proceeded to look back at her phone. And the light changed, and there were 2 guys that were behind me, and this is a large group of cyclists, like 50 people. And she hit him and tacoed his wheel. So it sounded like the loudest gunshot. So I think that the visibility is pretty much why we do that. We don't want to be annoying. We want to be out of your way. We know you're going to go faster, but yeah, that was a scary experience.
Yeah, thanks Tina for sharing that. I hope that cyclist is okay.
Ethan, what's up? If I could add, this is Tim Cannon. I'm one of the alumni, and like to add that some people are driving and on Zoom calls like me right now, or otherwise distracted. So you know, I've ridden my bike in LA for the last, 20 years almost. And you just have to be very, very aware and cognizant as a cyclist, and like hyper aware of what cars are doing, and kind of try to anticipate when they're going to do dumb things. That's, you know, why I've been successful so far and not getting hit. But I want to add something to the stoplight thing. One thing that I try to be courteous of is when I'm coming up on a light and I'm in the, you know, the bike lane or in the right lane or whatever. If there's a car behind me trying to turn right, then you know, be aware of that and try to move out of their way. The drivers really appreciate it. You can, you know, smile and wave, and let them go by, because, you know, they don't have to wait for the light to turn red. They can go around you. And sometimes to do that, I go over into the right lane in front of the cars, like you were saying, in order to free up that right space so somebody can turn right. But in general, you know, in cycling on the road, sometimes the safest place to be is in the lane and taking up the whole lane. And I think that cyclists should remember that, and drivers should realize that that's sometimes the case. You know, if it's like trash day, or you're in a group and the shoulder just isn't very big, or you're you know, riding on Old Topanga around corners and there's no visibility around the corner. Sometimes the safest place truly is to take the entire lane, make the driver wait a bit until you go around the blind corner, and then move over and let them pass. They may be annoyed, but I've had it so that, you know, we were going around a blind corner, the driver wanted to pass me. I didn't let them. I took the lane, and as we came around the corner, there was a car coming on the opposite direction, and they would have hit him head on had they tried to pass me. So, you know, those are some of the tips that I've found.
Thank you, guest panelist Tim. Awesome. Yeah, so I hope that clarifies somewhat on kind of both regards. That also is assuming, for when Tim's comment regarding the right lane, that the car is signaling to the right, right. But yeah, I think being proactive and visible and just making your intentions known to people and to drivers and those around you is crucial. Even in the instance of group riding, those, like, you can apply the skills that you use to signal to cars to group rides as well. When you're riding with other people, you want to make sure that they know that you're turning left, so you avoid crashing into one another, or you're turning right. You want to let them know that you're stopping because there's a stop sign coming up, or you saw some obstacle. So I even do that to cars too. Is I'll put the cycling signal. I guess it's the left hand, but you put a fist behind your back, the small of your back, so let them know that you're coming to a stop. So do that in group rides. You do that so cars that know that you're coming to a stop as well. And that's something that I think they usually teach maybe in elementary school, at least at my elementary school, that they taught us hand signals from a very early age. And I've used those every single day of my life, basically. So if you guys need a review on signals, feel free to comment, ask questions. Yeah. But Brian, thanks for asking that, bringing that up. And do you have any other comments regarding that? Pretty thoroughly exhausted that topic then.
Yeah.
Panelists, do you have anything to add? Lovely. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Question. I'm gonna open up one more time for questions. Audience, what do you got for us? Nothing yet. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna go refer to the poll. A couple people are looking for road etiquette. There's group ride etiquette as well that's on there. So what do you guys want to know about riding in groups? Is it more related to, can I ride in a group right now? Or is it more of a, how do I handle myself when I'm around other people? Anyone have a comment who responded to the poll?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm in Ohio right now, and I'm a first year at UCLA. So my question is more related to just how do you ride with like a bunch of other people? Because I've only ever ridden on the road with one other person, so it's pretty easy. Like it's pretty similar to riding by yourself. So I was just wondering how a bigger group would affect that, I guess.
Yeah, definitely group dynamics when with more people are very different than just riding with a single person for sure. So it's really a matter of being safe, predictable. I think any of the panelists are thoroughly experienced. So do you guys want to address Sarah's question of how do bigger group ride dynamics differ and how do you handle that?
Well, if nobody else wants to chime in, Crick, go ahead. Go
ahead. I told Tina I wasn't gonna do a lot of talking tonight, so y'all. But no, it does change a lot. Let me look. Hold on, just a second, so I can speak to you. So Sarah, yeah, it does change a lot. So usually when you're riding, as you already know, when you're riding with another person, it's usually feel like you're solo. So either one, you're kind of driving or riding side by side, or one is drafting the other. So I'm not sure with whom you're riding with, if you're the one leading or you're the one following. But when you are in a group, and I really encourage a lot of people to do, some type of group riding so that you can learn group etiquette. And I've ridden with several different groups. One group that really sticks out to me particularly was a group out of Tustin, and the way that they communicated was as if they were one body, meaning when they said middle, so you would have, let's just say you have 4 riders, and it's 2 and 2. When they said middle, that's the middle between the 2 riders. That's the middle of them. When they said left, that's the left of the left 2 riders. Right is the right of the right 2 riders. So everything that they did as they moved, it was all holistic of a body moving. So if it was middle, everybody knew to kind of fare out. If it was right, everybody knew to move this way. If it was left, so forth and so on, if you understand what I'm saying. I've also ridden with other groups that, left and right means left and right of that individual rider, not per se the actual group. So again, that just really comes with understanding the different dynamics of the different groups that you may ride with. What I do encourage is, just like I do with racing, I encourage you, if you do go to a group ride and sit on the back so that you can see the characteristic of the riders in front of you. You can tell if they're taking more dangerous turns and doing things a little bit weird, so that you can kind of make your own assessment of if you want to ride with that group again, if you want to work with that group, meaning the group doing a double peeling pace line, meaning that if you're on the outside, you're peeling over to the right. If you're on the inside, you're peeling to the left, and everything is working fluidly and smoothly. Some group rides that I've ridden in, only the front 4 guys are the ones doing all the work, meaning they're the only ones that are rotating while everybody else is just sitting in and enjoying the ride. Also with coming to lights, different things that we talked about, you will have people that will say we're stopping. Some will blow the stop sign, some will blow the stop light. So those are things that you just have to remain being aware about. And a big thing I want to leave you with, that, and maybe other panelists can elaborate on the topic as a whole, is overlapping. Riding in a group ride, it's going to happen. You're going to overlap wheels. And so we always say, even with racing, you are responsible of your front wheel. So riding in a group, you may find yourself in situations where overlapping may happen, whether you're falling back, whether you're progressing forward. Just be mindful of where your front wheel is, because it's a lot easier to tend to your front wheel when it's just you, or if it's you and another person, depending on where you are. And yeah, so I think that's a lot of good information. And also with group riding, know the route. Are there going to be stops? Are there going to be regrouping spots? Is there going to be rest stops? All those things are really good to know, because I've been on group rides where I am now by myself, and I've been on group rides that have legitimately waited on me and made sure that I finish. So hopefully that helps you out with your question.
Yeah, I can add to that as well. I think the first most important thing I would say about starting to ride in groups is just the ability to get comfortable with it. And that comes just from doing it more often. And so I know you mentioned that you've already been riding with one other person. So I think what I would suggest is to maybe do a group ride with that other person so that you already have somebody you know in the group. You have somebody that can stay back with you if you do happen to get dropped. And also find a group ride that matches your ability right now, because you definitely don't want to start out in a group ride that is going to just be way too fast or way too hard and you get dropped immediately and you can't even catch up. So I know it's a little hard right now with COVID and everything, and if there even are group rides happening, but just kind of in a general sense, it's definitely important to just ride at your ability and find a group that matches that. Yeah, and just being aware of not only of your surroundings and where you're riding, but also, as Kurt was saying, being aware of the people around you, and especially your front wheel. And lastly, I think one other really important thing is just like be confident. It can be a little bit intimidating and a little bit overwhelming for your first group ride and not really knowing like what to do or not really knowing the other people that are there. But yeah, just sort of being confident in your abilities and knowing that the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be with it.
Yeah, those are really awesome points. Sarah, I know that's probably a lot of information. Do any of the other panelists have something to add? Because I will summarize this and then put it in the chat as well. So
I think Britt and Julia covered a lot of the good points. Good point Britt brought up was the overlapping of the wheels.
Marco, you're a little soft, but like your volume's a little low.
You got me? You hear me?
Still a little quiet.
No? All right, I'll pass. Go ahead. No, don't worry about it.
Okay, Sam, did you have anything to say? I noticed you're unmuted.
No, I think the points that were made were really good, and I actually think that I really like the point that was made about riding with a group that you're comfortable with. I think what freaks people out a lot is when they kind of dive headfirst into a group dynamic that A, they're not familiar with, but B, they're not ready for. So a lot of getting better group handling skills is kind of progressively working your way towards something bigger and bigger, and being able to learn the ropes by making your way slowly and progressively through your comfort zones and pushing through those. So it's the same, I think, as like, in weight training, for example. I don't profess to be any kind of a bodybuilder, but I think that the fact that I'm not makes understanding the concept of like progressive training a little more important, because I'm not going to go out and like max out my squats and snap myself in half the first time I go to a gym, but rather over the progressive couple week period that my coach and I have set up throughout the weight training, we'll slowly add weights and make it a little more difficult or a little more challenging. And I think you can approach pretty much anything skills based like that in group riding, as far as like the type of riders you're with, the level of experience that you're with, as if you're matching yours to theirs. I think then that's a good way for everybody to learn, not just you, and for you guys to be comfortable practicing with each other. And that way you don't feel a lot of pressure. I think in my experience, like people end up hurting themselves, or, whether it be through crashing or just through like burning out as far as energy, because they're trying to push themselves too hard in places where they're not ready to be pushed. And that's not, a testament to their being weak. It's just a testament to them not acclimating themselves properly. So just ride with your friends, ride the people who you're comfortable with, and that will also just ensure that you have a good time on the bike, which is tantamount to enjoying yourself on the bike.
Lastly, I'd like to add to that on the meaning of riding within your capability. And again, everything I say, of course, if I reference Strava or Garmin or Wahoo, of course, none of this is sponsored, but it's just, these are resources and tools that we can use to help us. So when you hear Sam and Julie, I believe, say ride within your ability, what I like to do now, knowing that we have Strava and we have all these different maps, and a lot of people have done these rides before, you can actually go on, like if you find a group ride. So let's say you went to Texas and you say, hey, I'm going to do this group ride, but yet you know nothing about this group ride. So how do you know that this is in or out of your capability? Well, the beautiful thing is we have Strava, we have, all these different softwares that we can use now, to where usually somebody probably has already done that ride before. And so what you can do is possibly do some, some investigation work to see what the elevation gain is for that ride, because not everybody's a climber. So it may be, 8,000 feet of elevation gain and you've never done that. And it's like, I don't want to do that group ride when, and as somebody said, you can say, use Google Maps. And so that information really is beneficial to let you know if they could be going slow and you still can bonk because of the elevation gain in that ride, or it can be flat and fast. So I think utilizing Strava, doing a little bit of background research work also helps each of us when it comes to, because I do that. I like to travel and go do different rides, and I've never ridden with that group before, but I'm more confident when I download that route on my Garmin. I'm able to, if I do get lost or do get dropped, I got the course on my computer, so I'm good to go. And at the same time, if I'm not dropped or off the back, it's good to know what climbs I got coming up and what data is coming before I get there, so that I'm a little bit more confident and comfortable on the ride.
Yeah, that was actually a really good point. Doing like that background research. Like I remember for the first UCLA coffee ride that I ever did, I was so nervous. I didn't sleep all night. But what I ended up doing, yeah, don't laugh, it's true. What I ended up doing was, before any group rides that I would do in the future, I would kind of see where it was and I would just try the route out by myself. Because that way I knew, oh, this is a steep climb. Like if I can do it by myself, I'll be able to do it with other people. And then when you're with other people, there'll be other things happening. Like you have to pay attention to their bikes, where everybody is. But since you've done the route, you're already a little bit comfortable with the route. And then doing with people, you just add that I know that next level, and you can just easily integrate with the group and the ride. So it's a little excessive, of course, but for me that helped a lot. And then now I obviously know a little bit more about the area in LA and then other places, but yeah, just the background research can help in those settings.
Yeah, those are all great points. I think one thing that I also have to add, this was the first point that Quitwood made, and I just wanted to clarify it, was saying middle and left and right. That's in reference to obstacles. So a lot of the times on these roads, you're going to be seeing potholes or slick patches of oil or glass is huge. That side of the road, there's a lot of glass. So as a unit, you need to, and a group, you want to move over to avoid those things. You don't want one person to hit that patch of glass and then you have to wait up for them because you guys didn't communicate effectively. So that's one thing that I stress before every single UCLA ride is communicate. Just, you are a link in a chain. And if you don't point out that one pothole to especially the front person, the front two people are the most crucial. But even if you're the fourth or fifth person down the line and you don't call out the pothole that the front did, the person behind you might not know, and they might hit that pothole, they might hit that patch of glass, and that could ruin somebody's ride, and that could make for something that's really unsafe. So I am a huge advocate for just calling things out, as we say. So pothole on the right, pothole on the left, using hand motions like swinging your hands with your wrist behind you, so that people can look in front. If they're looking in front of you, they'll see you're motioning to move to the left. And if you find yourself on the front of a group, you are the conductor of the train. Like, you need to make sure everybody else behind you is safe. You're responsible. So go ahead, and if you see a pot and you're looking ahead, you see a car that's pulling out to the right, car slowing. Very simple words. Don't make it too complicated. Just 2 or 3 words so that people understand what's going on and what they need to do. If you say car slowing, people are gonna start slowing down. They're gonna hit the brakes and they're gonna look up and be like hyper, and their adrenaline's gonna kick in. So you can kind of use those communication tactics to make everybody safe, confident, and have, like Sam said, have a fun time, because that is paramount to having fun. Nice quote, Sam. I love it. Let's see. Anybody else have anything to add? Again, I'm going
I
to.
said riding with people you know is tantamount to having a good time.
Oh, I thought you said having a good time is tantamount.
Having a good time is important to having a good time on the bike. Keys to success on the bike are friends.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. So that is group riding. I am building a little bit of a summary right now as well, for your guys' reference, so that so somebody else, if you have a question that they can address, I'm just going to post that in the group chat, in the little chat on the side. Anyone have anything else to add or any other questions, clarifications? Sarah, did that answer your question? Was that some good advice?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you for asking that. That is big.
Ethan.
Yes.
Ethan, I'm just curious in terms of group rides. Are you guys doing any group rides right now? Are there you're in NorCal, Sam's in San Diego. Like, is anybody at UCLA? Is anybody group riding right now?
Yeah, hi. I can take over. I'm the current president of UCLA Cycling right now. We are not doing official group rides, but we are still riding as a we're still riding in a pod system, unofficially. Just we don't want to get in trouble with the university. Yeah, no. So I mean, all of what we've been discussing tonight seems is more for the Now ride, for example, or for the Nichols ride, but in we've been limiting groups to less than 8. And I think, obviously group dynamics are still applicable to that, but it's just a more friendly environment for people.
Yeah, there are group rides in Los Angeles that we are not going to endorse, because I think as a organization, we don't think that it's safe, but there are group rides that you can locate that are underground, supposedly in Los Angeles or wherever your area is. Strava's, like I think Critwood was saying, that's literally the go-to tool, so you can discover segments in your area and see who's been on that and if there's been any group rides. But in Los Angeles, I've only heard about group rides. I've actually never been on anything more than 3 or 4 people. So that said, everything that we've talked about is still applicable to even riding with just more than 2 people, essentially. So you still want to act as a one unit, no matter what. Yeah, but group rides, not too much of a thing right now. Besides in Colorado, in California at least. In Colorado or other states, things might be different, but I really only know from my point of view. So cool. Yeah, Tim also gave a talk about COVID-19 and cycling and safety guidelines, and kind of just gave a very comprehensive talk about that. So that is something that we definitely encourage checking out. And it's on YouTube, it's on our social media. So he goes into more in depth into what's safe at given the times right now.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. I have you could basically Google my last name, Cannon, CANAN, and cycling COVID on YouTube, and it should pop up, or it's on my my UCLA Health profile page as well. So just talk about some of the science and stuff that's out there in terms of group riding and masks and immunity and all that kind of stuff. At least what we knew at the time that I gave the talk, which was a month ago. So some of the things have changed by now. There's actually new guidelines in terms of returning to sports that the bigwigs in sports cardiology just put out about 3 days ago. So those actually changed since my talk. So they're recommending a little bit less of testing in terms of cardiac MRI and stress testing and stuff like that for people who had COVID infections with either really mild symptoms or no symptoms at all, they're not really recommending in-depth cardiac testing before returning to full cycling and full sports. So that's good for you guys, especially like young, healthy athletes. Don't really need extensive testing if you never really had significant heart symptoms. So but yeah, you guys can message me if you have any like specific questions about any of that. I'm happy to answer them.
I do have a question leading up to what you're saying. You know, as a runner, we have unofficial runs with my track club, and some of us wear a mask, you know, in our little informal group before we go off, and then we put them down and do our run. But I do see, and when I was riding, I saw a lot of cyclists wear a mask. You know, I recently had an episode on Old Topanga, and I kind of had to go to the hospital, and I found out I had a laryngeal spasm. And so my body just can't handle the heat like it used to. But I see a lot of cyclists wearing a mask. So I don't know if you're a physician, but it sounds like you've got some medical training. Are you telling people to like not to wear a mask while they're riding, that it would inhibit, you know, airflow and cardiac output and be more of a detriment versus wearing a mask with COVID? Because I really can't. I've been an athlete my whole life, and I've been continuing to train since COVID started. And, you know, I don't see the susceptibility to getting COVID unless you're in a tight group on the track or something like that, or you're in a peloton. So what's your opinion on masks now for athletes?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think a lot of people have had that same, wondering the same thing. I have seen people wearing masks or not wearing masks when they're out. In general, what I've been telling people is that you should at least have a mask with you, whether you're running or cycling. And the majority reason for that is kind of like you said, like if you have an emergency and you need to get picked up by somebody or call an Uber, or you need to just stop in at a gas station to get a Gatorade or something, like you need to have a mask with you. As far as wearing it while you're riding or running, I don't think that it's necessary. The risk of transmission when you're outdoors and relatively away from people is very low. The mask really helps when you're indoors in an enclosed area and blocking those respiratory droplets from spreading. And so that is much less of an issue when you're outdoors and there's free airflow and UV light that's killing anything that's alive in the air over a certain amount of time. So yeah, there is a risk, I think, if you're in a peloton and you're really close and right behind people, especially if someone is like coughing. So if you have any symptoms and you're coughing or sneezing, definitely don't ride with other people or run with other people. But otherwise, I think that the risk of transmission outside is really low. And so I encourage people to actually get out and exercise and do stuff outdoors. It's when you're stuck inside that transmission of viruses goes up. That's why virus transmission in the winter goes up and more people get the flu and stuff like that, just because more people are inside. So yeah, good questions.
Thank you, Tim, for addressing that. Good to have an expert on hand.
Oh, I am a physician, by the way, just to clarify.
Okay.
I'm a sports cardiologist with UCLA.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. Brian, do you have any other questions regarding COVID?
No, I think that's it. I just see a lot of people wearing, and I guess, Tim, as a physician, I guess they're not educated, would you say, on what's a safe thing to do, so they just kind of overprotect themselves? Would you agree with that?
Probably, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of fear out there, and there is, you know, a lot of infections, and so I think there's in some way good reason to have fear, but I just think that it's overkill if you're outside, and it can, especially if you're exercising at a high level, if you're close to your threshold or you're on a climb or something like that, that's when it could impair your airflow. If you're out for a walk, it's probably not going to limit you much at all, but if you're really exercising harder, then it's going to be obstructive.
Yeah.
I did it once. I rode with a mask up here. I live in Ventura now. I rode with a mask on one ride, and it actually had nothing to do with COVID. It's because there were fires, and when I took the mask off, my lungs were like burning from inhaling smoke, and it actually helped to wear the mask. But that was the only time that I rode with a mask on up here.
Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Okay, so questions from the audience? Anything else? Something that prompted your curiosity or something you urgently want to know? That kind of covers group ride etiquette, cycling during COVID, which were two of the other big points. Looks like a lot of people responded that they wanted to know how to shift weight on the bike while cornering and descending. So general descending and cornering tips, like bike handling, so that you are safe and confident when you're doing different terrain. Panelists, this is a question to you guys from me.
I think the big thing that novice cyclists need to learn is just number one, the inside foot is up. I think I've seen a lot of people when you're riding and you're pedaling. Generally, again, you have your feet when you're leaning. You have your inside foot, the one that's going closer towards the ground. Bring that up so it's not as close to the ground anymore. Just again, shift your weight. And when you're descending, going through the turn, I think a lot of people have this idea that you turn your bike, and I think that's a big misconception with descending is you lean your bike. You don't turn your bike in the sense that you like steer it. By shifting your weight and leaning the bike, you're actually able to create like a smaller wheelbase by kind of, I'm not a physician, like a physics guy. So I'm an English guy, so I can describe how this makes me feel, but I can't do it mathematically well. But essentially, you kind of lessen the wheelbase when you're leaning into the turn, and that actually aids in the process of turning the bike. And you ever so slightly press your weight down on the inside handlebar. At least that's what I do, and is press the outside foot. So you're centering your weight as equally on both sides as possible, but making sure you're pressing down on the rear and the front at the same time, so you're maintaining grip. And the big thing that I learned also is just staring through the turn, eyeballing the turn, entering wide, hitting the tangent, which is if there's, I wish I had a whiteboard. So essentially you enter the turn wide, and then you will take the straightest line possible through the turn. So that usually means using as much of the lane as possible, and you'll hit the tangent, which is the inside most point of that lane when you're carving. Yeah, Ethan, can you please?
The apex.
Yeah, the apex. Yeah. You run the tangent through the apex, and then you exit wide. So key things on a descent is you shift your weight such that you'll enter the turn wide, and you will cut through the tangent through the apex, and then you will exit wide. Ethan, let's see that. Ethan, you got to speak so people will be able to see the big screen.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so, I was muted. So I got my little lawyer pad out here. We're going around. This is a right-hand bend. You're coming around this side, and like Sam's saying, let's just follow this arrow. You're gonna want to start wide. And then here's the apex of the turn, like right here.
Mhm.
And then start cutting in. Okay. So can people see that? I feel like a
It's hard to
whiteboard would
see.
be better, but
I think the biggest thing, it's hard to teach descending not while doing it. And the biggest thing that I think allowed me to feel comfortable and more confident descending is just knowing my equipment. I am very finicky with my bike. I am the one who works on my bike. I know exactly what's going on with it. I know what the tires feel like. I know what their grip profile is like. I know how much PSI is in it. So that's the kind of thing that I think actually makes a huge difference in your confidence in descending, because there are moments, for example, in a race where I've had to take a spare wheel and I'm going through the descent, and it's a wheel that I have no idea what it feels like in the crosswinds or in like different conditions. The tire is a different width, the rim is a different width, it's a different compound for the tire, and that makes a difference in how confident you are in descending. So practicing, getting to know your equipment, and being familiar with the tool of your hobby is, I think, very important, and understanding what it feels like. And a lot of descending is simply finding your limit, or not. I'd never recommend finding your limit, but just finding where you're comfortable. Yeah, I see all these videos of like Brian Safa going down, and while they're beautiful to watch, and he's an incredibly amazing descending wizard, it scares the bejesus out of me every time he does it. But I think it's mostly just finding your comfort zone, and it's not even about pushing your comfort zone. You'll find that when you find your comfort zone, you just naturally you're able to expand it a little further and further the more that you do a descent. And that leads to the final point, which is knowing the descent. Knowing a descent is, I think, the biggest thing that you can do to make yourself more confident descending. Because I never recommend to people like to go rip a descent they've never been on before, because you don't know if it's a decreasing radius turn, you don't know what the road surface is like, and you have no idea what like certain features of the road or common things that happen on the road. For example, like I've cut my teeth in the Santa Monica Mountains, and I've ridden down Las Flores so many times to know that there is a right-hand bend that is just at the steepest part where there's always a rock in the road, always, just because it falls or something. And so I know for a fact that that corner, I deliberately slow down more to prevent myself from hitting a rock and then biffing it over the cliff. But key things when you're going through the descent, like we talked about, entering wide, exiting wide, and also when you're, for example, on a steep descent and you're going into a turn, don't be afraid to shift your weight back onto your rear wheel, because a lot of people don't actually understand this, and it took me a while to learn, but most of your braking power is actually on your front brake. So you could theoretically go the entirety of a descent and be fairly safe if all you had was your front brake, because that's where the majority of your braking power lies. Because when you brake with your front brake, the force goes forward, and that's what slows your bike down and you down, is because it's not you like locking up and Tokyo drifting the rear wheel. That one's just to kind of feather and make sure that you're getting that extra braking power. So I actually tell people, like, learn how to push your weight back, that when you do use your front brake, which is your more powerful brake, you are not like lifting your rear wheel up. And that way you are keeping the rear wheel down and you maintain that grip, but you're able to get a maximum amount of braking power throughout the turn. Oh, one last thing. I said through the turn, I meant to say before the turn, because the key is you want to make sure that you brake before a turn, and make sure you go into the turn at the speed at which you are comfortable. Because when you brake in a turn, the bike's natural inclination is to stand up and go straight. So when you're going into a turn, you brake and make sure that you're at the speed at which you are comfortable to go through that turn in, and then you can just let go. And if you're confident in your equipment and your ability, you don't have to touch the brakes in the turn, because you've already determined how the bike is going to react and how it's going to maneuver through the turn, where you're going to enter, exit, and you don't actually have to touch the brake. And that's the thing that it took me a while to learn, is that safe descending also includes just, a lot of braking. You go faster if you know how to control your speed. And if you don't believe that, you should watch like MotoGP, for example. Being able to brake into a turn, that's how the guys win races.
And to add what Sam said, a good thing to do is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Ride around your local neighborhood, go to parking lots and work. I mean, even before you get on the descent, I would just say work on, go to an industrial area, go to a parking lot and just work on doing 4 turns. What I've learned riding with people is that some people are actually more comfortable turning one direction or the other. Like I know a person turning right that fears them, but turning left, they're good to go. So also learning what turns you're uncomfortable with, so that like we talked about earlier, which foot to unclip and to clip in, those are things that you can work on at a slower speed. I think what Sam is also trying to say, and hopefully I can paint a clearer picture on this for him and for all of us, is as they tell us in the BRP, is outside, inside, outside. So if you're thinking about coming to an intersection and there's only a right-hand turn, and let's just say they're all one-way roads, there's no 2-lane traffic, all one-way roads. As you're coming to that intersection to turn right, you're going to be as far on the left of the road. When you make the right-hand turn, you want to if you can, put yourself where the sidewalk connects to the actual tarmac. You want to get as close inside, cutting through the apex, like Marco said, and then you want to exit out of that turn outside. So outside, inside, outside. Again, those 2 roads are one-way roads. We're using this as an example because that's not always the case. Some of us, we actually will cross the double line to give us the most, and it also gives you the straightest line through the turn. So if you think about it, if you go outside, inside, outside, you're able to carry your momentum, as Sam has said, and it also gives you the straightest line through the turn. I know that kind of sounds oxymoronish, but it's true. Outside, inside, outside. That's it.
No, that all sounds good. If I could add just one thing, it's just be smooth. Feather the brakes, don't stab the brakes. Everything should be sort of like a video game where you're just processing everything, but you're not doing any rash maneuvers. Everything is just real smooth. And that way you end up going faster in the long run.
I also really like the idea. I love everything that Sam said, and I hope one day that I get to work on my bikes and know them as well as he does. But I would say, like, build yourself up to all of these experiences. Try to go out with someone who's a little more experienced and say, hey, let's take this first descent a little slower. Let's just work on clean lines, and then the next time you come up to it, just say ramp it up a little bit faster and follow that person down. Following somebody that you trust is like a great way to learn how to descend. And because if they can do it, you can do it.
Those are all awesome points. Thank you. I finished my diagram. That's what I've been working on this entire time. So this is what it looks like. I'm so proud. But that's your outside, inside, outside sort of line. And that is the smoothest, the least braking that you're actually going to have to do is this arc right here. So that's coming around a right-hand bend, like whatever. Anyways, you guys can take a screenshot of me and then practice that on your own or something like that. But okay, thank you guys for those comments. That's super excellent advice. Anything else to add? Any other panelists? I'm also kind of recapping all that in a bulleted list, so I'll put that in chat. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, any last question? I just wanted to make a comment on what Sam said about the gear as well, and that you're knowing your tire pressure and your drivetrain isn't screwy and your gears aren't clicking, your brakes work. All that is super, super important to making sure that you have the safest and most comfortable ride. And you don't want your brakes to fail on you when you're practicing your descending. So like your first order of business is getting a bike that is that you know well, that you have gotten tuned up by a local bike shop. We have Helen's Bike Shop is in Los Angeles that UCLA and Lagrange both work with. There's definitely others in San Diego and in the Bay Area that if you guys are in any other locations, we can hook you up with those people. So just let us know if you need suggestions, and we're happy to help. But making sure that your gear is up to par is really important for your ability to practice, as Crit Whit likes to say. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in there. Airs, brakes, and chain. That's the way I go by the ABCs of cycling before every single ride. It's making sure I have air in my tires, my brakes are working, and my chain is smooth. It's been oiled, and it's the gears aren't clicking around and making weird noises. So when I get out of the saddle, I don't skip and go flying over the handlebars. That still happens, but I still go over the handlebars a lot.
Hey, Ethan, this is John. I always see people like pumping their tires up to like 110 PSI, thinking, more is better. It's cringeworthy. I always try to explain that, it's better rolling resistance, small things, but it also improves traction. So maybe you can comment like what you think optimal PSI is on like a dry day versus like a wet, rainy day.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I see that too all the time. I have people walking into bike shops and just being like, yeah, I'm at 125. Isn't that normal? Like, okay, times are changing. So that is old news, guys. That is high PSI. The days of rock hard tires are over. I advise going between like 90 PSI and 100 in your rear. So a little less, maybe 5 PSI less on the front, and then a little more on your rear. Most of your weight is actually on your butt, right? So on the rear wheel, and then the front is giving you the traction around corners, so that you want a little bit more surface area contact to the road. So if it's a road bike, that's what I would go with. If you're running tubeless tires or wider tires, you can even drop that lower. But if you're running kind of standard 25 millimeter tires and you're 150 pounds, that's what I would go with, is about probably 90, 95 PSI, maybe even, yeah, to get kind of optimize your flat resistance and also traction.
It's Crit Whit again. I like to add to that because I think I am an expert at flats. Don't y'all laugh. But I do think with your weight does matter. I personally think a good average is anywhere between 80 to 90. But again, we all weigh different. And so I think that has a big part. Also with inclement weather, I think you should probably go down to maybe 70 to 80. And again, it's all about the contact point on the tires. So the more, of course, with cycling tires, it's really nothing like car tires because you don't have the massive channels on the tires like we do on car tires, but more traction on the road and all the technology that goes into these tires. The black chili from Continental and the smart net in Schwalbe and these different companies. You want more tire on the road. So of course, when it's inclement, you want to lower specifically wet or probably even snow. You want to lower it just a little bit so that you still get just a little bit more traction. And when it is better weather, you can up it like 10 PSI, just as Ethan is saying, 5 to 10 PSI higher, just because it gives you, less rolling resistance because, again, the roads are not wet. But at the same time, I would be mindful of what tires you're using because some tires are better for different, where you're riding. And again, it goes back to if you are traveling, some tires are better on, you're riding on cobbles or you're riding on tarmac or you're riding on concrete, where with concrete roads, they really break up a lot. So that your tire selection is really going to depend on where you're riding. And then with the high PSI, like what Ethan was talking about as well. And I think Tina can probably speak more to this, and it's something that I want to get into. It is track riding. And I believe track cyclists do pump their tires up to almost maximum PSI just because, again, the track is typically wooden, it's asphalt, and it's pretty much clean. And you want less rolling resistance so that you can go faster. So again, also where you're riding does play a big part, as well as how much you weigh as the rider.
That was beautiful. That was just, oh my God, tear in my eye. Thank you, Crit Whit. John, you have anything? Does that clarify that for you?
Oh yeah, I'm good. I feel like
Cool.
when you're mountain biking, you're gonna be like obsessing over half PSI increments. So it gets even nerdier as you go to dirt.
That is so true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dirt is a different story. Most people run tubeless, so you could do 23.24 psi and then, you know, and 26.2. You know, I have no idea. Like, I generally run 25 psi if I'm mountain biking. So yeah, it depends on terrain too. Like if you're trying to go fast and you're only doing smooth fire roads, you can go run higher psi too. But cool. Okay, last question. From anybody? This is kind of like we're closing things down. We're closing up shop. So anyone else have anything really urgent or dire that they want to address? Going once? Going twice? All right. Well, that concludes our first workshop series. Thank you so much for being here. To all of the audience members, that was fun, and I look forward to. Thank you to the panelists. Everyone, give a virtual round of applause to our panelists as well. Cool. Thanks, guys. And we will have one next week as well. So same time, 5 p.m. If you thought this was helpful and you'd like to promote this to your friends, your family members, people you know, Brian, maybe that cyclist that almost hit you on that trail. If you want to let him know that he can come to one of these and get our tips, that would be super awesome. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to UCLA Cycling or Lagrange, Instagram, Facebook. Sam Boardman is Boardmanito on Instagram. He's no longer part of UCLA, but he's his own entity now. So with that said, thank you guys, and you can find the recording on our social media as well.